Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. It is evening for me, it is afternoon for some, and it is even morning for others. You see, we're a global enterprise, and I know we have people all over the world, from Southeast Asia to Europe to California and to the East Coast. So we are here today, town hall, to discuss the science behind the NuCalm Stress Assessment. This is an amazing tool. It's been years in the making. For us personally, as a neuroscience company, we have coveted any type of measurable, accurate quantification of the impact NuCalm has. And what a gift it is for us to have a technology that marries so well with what we're doing. Now, why do I say that? Well, in the last 10 years, our society has adopted a lot of quantified self tools. I think it started with the Fitbit, graduated to the Apple Watch. You've got Oura Rings, you've got Whoop bands, you've got Garmin, and these are all amazing technologies, and they give you the gift of quantifying aspects of your life. The challenge is there is a very low level of sensitivity and accuracy to these measurement tools because they have to trade off accuracy for convenience. You see, the more you learn about heart rate variability, which is the study or the measurement of the interstitial chaos between your heartbeat, the more chaos and variability, the healthier the organism is. Well, to get an accurate measurement, what we did in 2011, 12, 13, 14, and 15 is you literally have to take off your shirt. We applied a single lead ECG device to your heart, right on your chest. You sat there for 5 minutes. You did NuCalm. You got up after NuCalm. You sat there for 5 minutes. We then took the single lead ECG device off your heart, downloaded that data, millions of data points, sent it to Dr. Pang at Harvard Medical School, a leading statistical biophysicist, who then took that data and pushed it through the Hilbert-Huang transform algorithm. If this sounds sophisticated and complicated, it is, but that's what we need to do to get a sensitive measurement of what you call the sympathovagal balance, the balance between your sympathetic nervous system and your parasympathetic nervous system. Well, if I had an Oura Ring and I'm looking at my HRV, it's not giving me an accurate measurement. What that's doing is called a time domain picture. It's like a Polaroid of me at that moment. It has no relevance to me. So this tool is exactly what we've been looking for. And for many of you who've been with us for a long time, you know that we flirted around with another technology years ago. And for about 10 years, we've been looking at where is a way for us to accurately measure the quantified impact we're having. And so we launched the stress assessment on Wednesday. We've already had thousands and thousands of people use it, and it's amazing. The sensitivity is amazing. The precision is amazing. And it is my honor to have with us the brilliant scientist and the expert in audio capture, vocal capture, and the ability to take lots of data from your voice and extrapolate that data into a sensitive and precise measurement. And for us, the more you learn about what this can do, the more you see why there's a marriage made in heaven here, because we as a company in 2015 were awarded the first and only patent for balancing the autonomic nervous system of a human being without drugs. And this tool is going to showcase a precise measurement of the nervous system. So without further ado, I would like to introduce my friend, Matthew Sanderson, a gentleman I've known for 9 years now. And we've had a circuitous path, and now our paths have intersected, and he's the genius behind the science of the NuCalm Stress Assessment. So welcome, Matthew. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Jim. It's a pleasure to be here.
So my first question to you, Matthew, is this, and it's going to take me a minute to share. When we first brought NuCalm to the market in 2009 to the medical community, we sounded like Martians. We literally sounded like aliens speaking to humans. Hey, this is what we can do. We can modulate brainwave frequency using cranial electrotherapy stimulation and carotid artery transdermal cream and modulation using, physics and mathematics and algorithms. And people are like, what are you talking about? Well, when I share with somebody, through your voice, we can capture millions of data points and we can get a precise measurement specifically of your nervous system with an immediacy. People are like, how? What are you talking about? So can you start tonight by sharing with us what is the power and the information that comes out of a human voice.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think everyone can relate to, picking up the phone and talking to somebody that they know and hearing instantly that there's something wrong, right? The moment you hear somebody's voice, you can tell that there's something going on if they're, emotional or out of balance or out of sorts, right? Um, and so the voice ultimately is a carrier and an expression of the entire system, the entire nervous system. And one way to think about that is that the nervous system is carrying all of these electrical signals, like the speaker wires from your home stereo system. And the voice box is like the speaker, and it's amplifying all of that information. And all of that information is carried on the sound of your voice, regardless of what language you speak, regardless of what you're saying. So without even looking at the words that people are using, but just the frequencies and the intonation, all of that information is being carried in there. And so one way to think about it is that, well, I guess the most fundamental point is that the vagus nerve is, we all know, is carrying all of that information. The vagus nerve, the 10th cranial nerve, it's the longest nerve in the cranial nerve in the body, and it innervates. The reason it's so special is that it innervates the organs, and it innervates the motor nerves, and it innervates also to sensory nerves. So it's carrying all of that information. It's like the superhighway of information in your body. And it also, through the recurrent laryngeal nerve, is going right into the voice box. And it's carrying information bidirectionally. So it's sending information and it's also receiving information. It's one of the reasons that when you speak or you sing or do any kind of voice exercises, you can actually balance your system also. It's also one of the reasons that if you listen to music like NuCalm, like precise music that is actually modulating your brain and your central nervous system, it affects your whole system, because the auditory system, the voice, the vocal system, and the central nervous system are all working in concert.
I remember, this is a personal story, but you were at David Poole's house in Boston. It was 6 years ago. And during a rescue experience, found you giggling. And when you got up, you said, yes, I was giggling because I could feel what you were doing to me. I just couldn't figure out how you were doing it. Interestingly enough, Matthew, last year, late last year, or was it early this year? We released something called the Rescue Vagal Tone, Rescue VT for vagal tone, not Vermont. And in this process, we built that around 130 hertz, which is the vibrational pattern of the vagus nerve. So we tell people if you really want to express this to its fullest extent, you will lay down when you begin to do the rescue VT and you will say voo, which
Mm-hmm.
activates the vagus nerve. So again, I'm using my voice. I'm resonating at 130 hertz. It's activating my vagus nerve. So I think most people on this call, and certainly the people who've been associated with NuCalm, understand the power of the vagus nerve. They may not understand it in full. They may not know that it is the communication pathway. It is the pathway of the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. And activating the vagus nerve causes everything good and everything bad in our system. And so, can you share with us conceptually, because I don't think people understand this, our body wants to get into homeostasis. Now, we say that on a physiology manner, we say that on a brain manner, but really, in speaking to you, this is about harmony. It's about harmonious synchronicity of the frequencies of the organs, of the muscle tissue, of everything in our body. So, can you speak to why it's important or why the body is constantly trying to achieve harmony?
Yeah. So a good way to think about that is that when we take a voice recording, you're listening to all of these frequencies in the time domain. So over the course of 35 seconds or so, and we do a transform. and which is an algorithm, and it transforms that information into the frequency domain. And then what we do is we look at the relative balance of all of those frequencies. And the relative balance of those frequencies is exactly what you're talking about in terms of homeostasis in the body. What I noticed when we did this is that because there are thousands of ways to analyze audio with different algorithms and more being created all the time. But in this particular way, what it actually shows is that the more stressed a person is, the more out of balance that wave is. In other words, the higher the peaks and the deeper the valleys. And the more calm and harmonic a person's central nervous system is, the more balanced their voice is, so that it literally becomes a flat line all the way across, and all the frequencies are balanced. You don't have these big spikes and drops in the voice at specific frequencies. So it's literally a snapshot of the ability of the body to maintain homeostasis.
It's fascinating. When we launched this, I had personal calls with about 100 influencers within our network. And I told each person, your voice doesn't lie. Now, everybody's bright, and a lot of people are skeptical, and a lot of people don't understand the power of voice. This is new for a lot of people. And one person sent me an email, said, Mr. Poole, can this be tricked like a lie detector test? And my answer was simple. No, it cannot be. Why can't it be? Because you don't even know what we're evaluating. You can't trick what you don't even know. You can't modulate your pitch, frequency distortions, gaps in the frequency. You don't even know what we're doing. So I just spent 5 days on the road. They were long days. I was on stage a bunch of times, a lot going on. And one morning, I woke up and I have a deep voice anyway, but in the morning I sound like, ooh. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, I'm going to record a really low score. No, I didn't. It was a 92. So again, you can't trick that voice. And another thing that I've noticed personally, having used Rescue for almost 16 years, I'm a couple months away from 16 years of daily use.
Mm-hmm.
My nervous system is the best of anything I have to offer. It's the healthiest aspect of my life. My
Mm-hmm.
musculoskeletal and all the stuff I've broken and my muscle tissue, that stuff, that's evil Knievel minus the fame and fortune. But my nervous system is in such a good, healthy place that it doesn't matter that on Wednesday I woke up at 4 a.m. and traveled 13 hours out west and I had a 91. Yesterday, I had a 13-hour travel day and it should have been 6 hours. There was tremendous delays around the country, and I had a 92 this morning. So it's fascinating the cumulative benefit to my nervous system by taking care of my nervous system, despite, incidental spikes here and there. So a couple of things that we've seen so far, Matthew, which is fascinating. High-end military operator, 72, does a rescue VT, reports an 84. He doesn't report, he sends me the picture. Doctor hurt his elbow playing pickleball, didn't sleep well one night, 64 in the morning, did a 50-minute rescue and had a 94. Now, I haven't even seen a 94, so I was uber impressed. Female practitioner has a 93. I'm very impressed. Next 2 days, her husband's in the hospital with kidney stones. She's stressed out. She records a 74. So I'm starting to see some
Mm-hmm.
specificity in the movement. I'm starting to see one female has a 74. The next day it's an 82. What'd you do different? She says, well, my period went away and I slept well. So that hormonal dysregulation challenged the nervous system. So what can we expect to see in the variability? Now,
Yeah.
part of us who kind of have the physiology of a monk by no fault of our own, we didn't try to do this, we just used this product for so long. But for the masses, what can they expect to see in variability on a day-to-day basis?
Mhm. Yeah, good question. Um, one Another way I like to describe this is that we use the word coherence score, right? Um, it's also a measurement of resilience. And one why I say that is because the more balanced your system is, the more stresses it can metabolize, essentially, right? If you have stresses in frequencies, then you're going to be more sensitive to those frequencies. It's even right down to things like allergic reactions. I've found that allergic reactions to certain things are frequency correlations to things that are already stressed in your voice, in your nervous system. But the the variance that you can see is related to a lot of things. So, for instance, in testing the system, I would go and do intense workouts. And that would drop my score considerably because all of those muscles would be weak and all of the frequencies for those muscles would be weak because I just depleted them. And then you could watch those frequencies get stronger as those muscles recuperated. And I went through the recovery period. But it became a really direct measurement of how well I worked out those muscles. You can see variation in your voice from different periods of time during the day based on what's going on around you and your ability to metabolize that information and that energy and maintain homeostasis. So I think you're going to expect to see anything from, just a few points to, if it's a really stressful day, yeah, you might see 30-point difference in your scores. And it's nothing to take personally, although it's a very personal and individual score, and a way to monitor your situation. But it really shows you how well you're managing the stresses in your life. So
One thing that, well, first of all, this is fascinating. So thank you. Thank you for spending so many years inventing this particular method to apply years of research in audio physics. This has been around for a long time, but it's not been applied to anything specific like this. And this is really powerful. Something that I think is really fascinating as well. So we're in the realm of resonance and vibration. It's like a tuning fork. And your body and your brain and your soul want to get into harmony, like a tuning fork. And NuCalm is an external representation of specific frequencies using a tuning fork to tune that homeostasis. All of this is related. After you do a rescue, your body is still integrating the massive amounts of information and the frequencies that we are bringing to your body. So your score can incrementally still improve minutes to half hour to an hour after you experience rescue. And this should not come as a surprise to anybody because after you do rescue, you feel good for a long time. It doesn't dissipate within minutes at all. In fact, the more you do it, the more resilience you have, the longer the impact lasts. So that's fascinating to me. Let's turn our attention here, Matthew, to the actual capture of the data. So data in, data out, good data in, good data out, garbage data in, garbage data out. And I know there's some specific kind of things we want to pay attention to. Probably the most specific for corrupting and creating artifacts in the algorithms is ancillary noise. So can you just walk us through the ideal voice capture, which would be optimal for you to take all the information and have a very precise score?
right.
What do we need to do?
Yeah, well, because we don't have filters on the system, it is really important that you use the system in a clean audio environment where you don't have background noise. And even subtle background noise like fans or motors, computer fans, things like that, will change your scores and will affect the audio. Filters can be helpful, but they also limit the information we're taking. We're trying to take all the information. So it is important that you pay attention to the background noise. If somebody slams a door or you have like barking dogs and things like that in the background, just do a new recording so that it's quiet. And you definitely don't want to have other people in the background too. If you have other people talking, that will affect you for sure. And the other important thing is to speak naturally, like you're leaving a message to a friend. We did a lot of studies to determine the best way to do this, and there, we researched the state of the art too to see what everyone else was doing. And there are lots of ways to capture the voice, but The most information is in a natural speaking voice, because then your nervous system is actually engaged. If you read, your nervous system is cut off. It's not coming from a natural place within you. So we notice that when you read a book or you read like a paragraph when you're doing the recording, we don't get as much information at all, or we get inaccurate information. So it's important to speak naturally. It's important to speak, something authentic to you too. The more authentic it is, the more it's coming from you and your natural state in the moment, the more accurate the read.
So a couple funny things about social psychology. I've had many people state to me, mostly females, well, I'm really nervous to take this. I really want to get a good score. And I'm thinking to myself, it's about authenticity. You can't, right? Your voice doesn't lie. So just speak authentically. And my
Mhm.
wife says, the whole thing intimidates me. I get like stage
Yeah.
fright.
Yeah.
So we've directed people, just describe your current environment in great
Yeah.
deals of minutia.
That's the best thing to do, is just describe your environment, or talk about how you feel, or what you're going to do today, or what you just did, talk about something in your immediate, environment. That's the best way to do it.
So over the years, you've shared with me the level of specificity and precision of the amount of data that comes out of the voice and the frequencies and the peaks and the
Mhm.
valleys and the distortions. If I were, as a person here, to go to the doctor and get a blood test and then get some neurotransmitter panels, maybe get an MRI and a CAT scan, and I collated all that data. Well, first of all, I can't do it in one day. But if I collate all that data, you said to me, no, Jim, the precision of this and the immediacy surpasses any of that because of all the information and the precise authenticity of the information coming to this algorithm. I will give back to you a more precise reading than any of those things can do. So, can you explain that? Because that is fascinating.
Right. Well, the voice goes from, about 80 hertz in a man, 150 hertz or so in a woman, up to 20,000 hertz. And that's a lot of information. That's a lot of data points. If you think about the resolution of the audio capture of your microphone, there's millions of data points in there. Most of the data that we're looking at is in the first 1 or 2,000 hertz, but that's several octaves of vocal information, and it's well over 10,000 data points that we then have to pull the most relevant information from in order to make some kind of assessment of a person's health, vitality, coherence, etc. So um, yeah, over 10,000 data points. And, when we do a full vocal analysis of someone, we'll get pages, like 7, 8 pages of information about what's going on in their system, from organ imbalances to hormones and vitamins and neurotransmitters. There's all of these frequency correlations that are actually embedded in the vocal information. So,
Well, I know that for a fact because you and I did this. Um, I had just had blood work done, so I had my report. And then you and
mhm.
I were talking, and you were walking through the paravertebrals, the left clavicle, the number of concussions, the vitamin D deficiency, and then my blood work. And I was looking at the blood work and listening to you detail my report, and I was like, this is incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible. So we're thrilled with this opportunity because for us, again, everybody on this call, if you're using NuCalm, you already know how profound this impacts you. You feel it every day. But we've lost some of that intuition and trust in the experience because we've grown so skeptical because we've been marketed to and lied to by a million companies for our entire life. So at some
Mhm.
point we should get skeptical. But now we have a tool that can reinforce and provide guidance. If I record an 87 or an 86, then I know, okay, I do need a rescue VT, right? Or I do need a 30-minute. So we're going to use this for our current customers. We're going to capture hundreds of thousands of data points. We're going to look at corollaries and analysis to say, hey, if you were to do an 86 and then you do 3 successive days with a rescue VT in the afternoon and deep sleep at night, we can guarantee you're going to go up, 8 or 9%. And you shared with us that the nervous system and the balance of the nervous system, the resilience and the body's ability to be resilient, this is no small task. So if you were to go from 89 to a 93, well, Jim, you did that in 20 minutes of a rescue experience. Where else can you increase 4% your nervous system health, balance, and resilience? Nowhere, really. So that is absolutely fascinating to us. Um, I want to
Something else
share
I
with
want to
people.
mention, something else I want to mention about that, Jim, is that we think of nourishment for the body being food and supplements and all these things that we're putting in it. But NuCalm should also be seen as nourishment because music, especially harmonically balanced music, is is absolutely nourishing to the system. And the more our system receives that kind of harmonic information, the more harmony it's going to hold on to, and the more resonance is going to be there. So there's also a direct connection between that and not just health and vitality, but longevity. When you start talking about resilience, you're also talking about the body's ability to maintain homeostasis and maintain resonance, which has everything to do with how long we're going to live. Because
Yes.
the breakdown of resonance in the body is is very correlated with the longevity of our system.
And we see that, we see a lot of that in disease management,
Yeah,
addictive disease treatment, trauma, complex trauma. We've seen the most visible improvement in cancer
yeah,
because the body's resilience is so compromised. The stress response is so profound after the diagnosis. And then the confusion and the chemo and the radiation and all the different things happening it's impossible for a cancer patient to remain in homeostasis. So our gift to them is like a tuning fork. We come and we say, here, let us get you into harmony. Let us resolve the stress, give you the sleep quality, bring the body into harmony and homeostasis and allow your body to fight. So we see that all the time, and it is incredible. And we're given the gift of resilience in a time where the body naturally can't do it because the survival instinct kicks in, the amygdala gets inflamed, and it corrupts the entire enterprise, right? Um, a fascinating thing about gender is that this won't come to a surprise as anybody, but women carry more stress than men. Surprise, surprise, right? We could make the argument that women protect the survival of the species. They take care of the human species. So what we've seen, and you've told us to expect this, is often a lower score in the female because the female carries more stress and the stress comes out in the voice. So can you speak to that just for a little bit about what we can expect on the gender piece?
yeah, yeah. There are two answers to that. One has to do with the algorithm, and one has to do with what you just said. It's you know, difference in gender is really fascinating. And from a psychological perspective, men have an ability to compartmentalize much more easily than women. Women take in all the information and hold it all and process all of it simultaneously, whereas men can just like put the blinders on and focus and leave all the rest aside. And I think that's part of the general makeup of men and women that is also it's a strength. It's not at all I it's important to see that as a strength because that's what allows us um, to really function in the best way possible and to partner. And
So Matthew, there's a physiological reason for that, and some of you may know this, and some of you may not. The corpus callosum is larger in a female brain than a man's brain,
there you
which means
go.
the laterality and the access points of information from the left and right brain, there's a lot more information. Men
Yeah,
don't have that.
right.
So there's two things a woman can do physiologically that a man can't do. One, worry, and two, multitask. Seriously.
Yeah,
So if my wife says, "Hey, why aren't you worried about that?" She thinks I'm being callous, and I'm not.
right.
I'm incapable of worrying about that. There's not enough information going from each seriously. It's fascinating.
Yeah,
So it results in this manner, but the way I see it, evolutionary wise, is I see the woman needing to be far more observant and protective. She's protecting the species. I know that when my wife gave
And
birth to our first
intuitive.
daughter
Yeah,
23 years ago, physiologically she changed. From that point forward, she could hear a mouse fart 3 rooms over while I slept through our baby waking up because she needed to feed.
right.
I slept through it all. So there is a reason for it, and there's a
Absolutely.
physiological shift in the brains of women and men.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And so that's one answer. The other answer has to do with the algorithm itself. And I mentioned to you that what we will do is break it up into two, basically a modification of the algorithm specifically for females, because the female voice is higher. Start the fundamental, meaning the primary frequencies, the strongest frequencies in the female voice are higher typically than in men. So, like I said before, the male voice could be anywhere between like 80 and 120 hertz would be the fundamental or the strongest frequencies there. And the female might be anywhere between 120 and 200. And children's voices too are going to get a lower score because their fundamental frequency is higher. But we have to capture all of it. So we start the algorithm at 80 hertz. Because the female voice is higher, there's this big variation between where we start the algorithm at 80 hertz and their fundamental frequency. So their score is naturally going to be a little bit lower, and I hope that helps to explain that it's not necessarily it shouldn't be seen as a comparative between men and women. I think that's an important point. The importance is really to look at the variation in your particular scores as opposed to comparing it with someone else's.
And also,
It's very
Matthew,
personal.
the female has to deal with pre, peri, and postmenopausal hormonal dysregulation. And that's going to dramatically impact the nervous system. It impacts their sleep, their ability to regulate their temperature. There's a lot happening.
Right?
So it's fascinating.
Yeah.
I want to share with the audience one important element here. We as a company, NuCalm, neuroscience company, we have never shared anybody's data. Okay. We will not be sharing the data. In fact, we're not looking at specific data. We're going to capture 100,000 data points in the next 45 days. We're going to do a meta-analysis. We're going to look at trends on a meta level. But we used to work in medicine. We used to be dealing with HIPAA. We work with military and the FBI. Data protection is uber important to us, and we will never share data specific to you, your health, your nervous system, your usage patterns, or anything like that. Even when organizations like the FBI or military or professional sports teams have asked us for data, we've redacted all the names and information and just given them a group. Here's 26 users, here's the aggregate and the collective usage. So just for the record, so everybody feels comfortable, there is no data sharing with what we're doing. All right, so Matthew, I've got a couple questions that came in to us. And
Right.
one we've already answered, which is the female voice versus the male voice. The second one we've already answered, which is data protection. The third one is interesting. I've used the Evox system in the past by Zyto. Is this technology similar? I'll answer that one, Matthew. Evox in Zito or Zyto is actually a cognitive behavioral therapy where you're doing an energy pattern footprint through voice, and then you're doing cognitive behavioral therapy trying to separate the emotion from the memory. So that's has nothing to do with what we're doing. We're taking voice information and frequency information, and we were capturing a footprint of the health, homeostasis, and resilience of the nervous system. This is not a tool used to express anything but that number to showcase where we're at. So it's completely different. However, in the same vein, if you've used Evox, I would recommend that you entertain using Rescue, because the reason that we've been so successful helping people heal from trauma is when you are in that state of 4 hertz and you're in the lucid dream state of healing, your mind is able to access memories that create trauma, but your body cannot elicit the anxious response. And the more you're in this space, having the memory separating from the physiological response, we are giving it that distance and separating the trauma from the memory. We're not erasing your memory. We're erasing the trauma and the connective tissue to the amygdala from the memory pattern because anyone who's come out of complex trauma, trauma or addiction, the blood flow has been restricted to the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex, which holds that person's brain hostage in a memory pattern that elicits and pings the amygdala. So you're in a constant state of worry. Successive rescue and deep sleep at night will transform all of that. We can't give you the degree and the recipe of exactly how many sessions it takes. It's completely up to your epigenetics, the complexity of your trauma, the support team, everything around you. But Evox and Zyto, I don't think we're talking about the same thing because this is proven, clinically proven, patented method. So I would definitely suggest whoever asked that question to entertain that process over the Zyto. Is it critical to record the second voice sample immediately after your rescue session, or can it wait a few hours? So we have an audience of folks who are very bright, intellectually curious, understand and have a self-awareness of their body, and they want to do things right. So is it critical, Matthew, if I do rescue, to immediately record my post-rescue session with the voice analysis?
It is not critical. I would suggest that you experiment, and you could do a recording right afterwards. You could also do a recording a half an hour afterwards, and see how things are evolving, or what I would say integrating, how well you're integrating the rescue session. Um, there are there is some benefit to doing immediately afterwards because your system is going to be influenced by whatever you experience over the next hour. So you're not getting an exact read on the effect of the rescue session because maybe you'll get a phone call or something else is going to affect your system, right? But I suggest people try different things and see what their system shows, because some people will assimilate the rescue session right away, and some people may take some time for that all of that frequency information to settle in.
And it varies. There's some days where I get out of rescue VT and I'm not interested in getting out. I want to go back. And there's
Right.
other days I pop right up, I'm ready to go. You bring up a great point. In the last couple of days, with such enthusiasm and a desire to showcase what we've done, this collaboration is brilliant. It's so perfect. Contacted a bunch of folks. Here's how we're going to use this. There are elite military operators and other people in high stress performance arenas where we said, hey, you now have your CO, your commanding officer, now has access to understand the mission readiness of their operators in a 35-second voice recording. That's incredible. Can you imagine understanding where my people are at to say, hey, this person is at risk, then go do a rescue VT or, en route to the mission, do this or this and this. Then I spoke to a few veteran communities and said, listen, I want each of your counselors to be using this on a regular basis. There's a lot of osmosis. There's a lot of transference of anxiety as a counselor. We want to make sure that they're operating well. And for the veteran, and this isn't specific to NuCalm. Yes, we want you to do it before and after power nap and rescue, but do it before and after everything. Meditation, social interaction engagement, CVAC, cold plunges.
Yeah.
This is a tool to use it for anything you want. And we have a few pharmacies, point of purchase pharmacies. People are coming in to get their prescriptions.
Mhm.
Typically, Matthew, these prescriptions aren't really good for you. They may be solving a minute problem and creating more problems. We all get that. Pharmacists aren't that excited to be polluting the biochemistry of their population. So they're really excited to be showcasing the opportunity to bring NuCalm to their community. They love that. But
Mhm.
now they said, hey, I can have an iPad at the point of purchase register and say, hey, would you like to see how your nervous system is doing right now? That's incredible. So we will
Right.
see this in medical practices. We will see this in hospitality, like when you check into your hotel and you just flew and you're jet lagged. Hey, see your nervous system. We'll see this in military applications, commanding officers addressing the readiness of their operators. We'll see this in trauma, complex trauma, addicted disease, you name it. There's so many places for us just to get a snapshot of how I'm doing with precision and accuracy, which is such a gift. So, do you have any more parting words for our audience of neuroscience geeks who just love to help themselves and help the people they love? And this is a great technology augmentation to our offering.
Hmm. Oh, I love that. I love the fact that you're bringing in that you can use this as a assessment for any modality or intervention that you bring into your life. Um, it's extremely helpful. It's extremely accurate, and it really helps to. It's kind of like uh, using your voice as a dowsing rod for even interactions with people. You go on a first date with somebody, you can use your voice to tell you whether that was somebody that you want to spend more time with and resonate with. It really works.
Right.
Um, the uh, the other thing that I wanted to say is that um, when you use your own voice, like you were talking about earlier with the rescue VT, uh, and you resonate your own voice with NuCalm, that adds another layer of information and resonance because you're bringing your own autonomic nervous system, your own voice, your own agency into the process, and it makes it even more effective.
Yes. No, it's so fascinating. And I've done some vocal work with you before and immediately felt a sense of calm and peace, like I'd done Wim Hof breath work. And it was
Right.
just, a small segment of a hum or an ohm. It is fascinating. Someone said to me, and I'm fascinated with the fascination that everyone's having. They're loving this, and you can see them trying to process how this works. But someone said to me, "Do you think this is evolutionary that there's so much information coming from the voice?" And my first thought was, well, that's an interesting thought because when I speak, my voice doesn't sound the same to me because it's in here.
Right.
But perhaps the specificity of the voice and the voice expressing danger or sensitivity or hurt or pain or suffering, maybe that's for the people around me so that they can have awareness that I am in trouble because
Mm.
they can pick up sensitivity that I probably can't. So that the whole thing around this is so fascinating. The connective tissue of cranial nerve 10, the laryngeal nerve connected to the vocal box, expressing exactly how my nervous system is doing and my resilience. This is amazing. I want to say thank you to you and the years of dedication. I know you've worked tirelessly to apply very complex physics and algorithms to the human body where you can actually get information that I can act upon. The clarity, the sensitivity, and the accuracy and the immediacy is profound. So much love and gratitude to you. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for contributing all that you've done with the stress assessment. And we know, you and I both know, this is just the beginning.
That's
We're
right.
going to be able to do a lot more things. The more data we get, the
Yeah.
more we can tweak the algorithms, the more we can look for different things. So we're on an incredible journey together, and I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. And to everybody listening and part of the NuCalm family, we love you. Much love and gratitude for everybody. Take care of yourselves. Be well. Rescue VT, deep sleep at night, stress assessment in the morning, stress assessment after you work out, stress assessment all day long. Let's see the things that impact the health of your nervous system. All right, everybody, with
All
that,
right.
be well, take
Thank you
care.
so much, Jim.
All right, thank you.